Hi, I'm Connor Price, and this is my video on progressive and emergent play. So for section 1, I decided to do emergent gameplay, and I chose Halo 2. So Halo 2 displays emergent gameplay because the glitches that are present in the game. Halo 2 was an amazing Xbox game that helped bring Xbox Live to life. In Halo 2, there are multiple glitches that players abuse to gain an advantage over other players. It came to the point where if you got to a high enough level, it was necessary to have these skills. These glitches/strategies were super bouncing, BXRing, sword cancels, rocket jumps, and multiple other little quirky based glitches. So, super bouncing is where you crouch prior to jumping and landing on a fault line in the map. These fault lines were observable to players by going to your friends list while in game. So when you perform a super bounce, you shoot up in the air. I'll show you right here with this video, as you can see. So when you shoot up in the air, if you land on another fault line, you can perform a chain of super bounces. In Halo 2, there is no fall damage, and very few maps have height barriers, so super bounces allow players to get to a very good spot to snipe out enemy players. So he's going to hit a chain bounce right here. And now he can get even farther out of the map, and if he had a sniper rifle, he could look way into the map and shoot everybody out there, and it's a very unfair advantage. So now, BXRing is an action where a person melees, so they press B, attempts to reload, press X, and then shoots really fast. And if you shoot them in the head when you do this action, it's an instant kill. Why this is a type of emergent gameplay is because there's supposed to be a cooldown on after you're meleeing, but before you perform another action. But by pressing X first, this it disables this cooldown, and this isn't something that the developers intended for. As you can see in this video, this person is instant killing this person, and that is a BXR. And then there's also sword cancels. So in Halo 2, when you swing towards someone with a sword, you would normally kill them. But so it's basically like a lunging motion, but you can also do a sword cancel. When you swing towards them and then click X, it cancels out the damage part of the sword action, but you still lunge towards them. So with this, you can get out of the map. Or there's also something that also that came from this, which is also part of emergent gameplay, is butterflying, coming from sword canceling, which is where a person stands on the other person's head and jumps, and the person underneath has a sword, and they keep sword canceling while the person is jumping, and they just keep pushing up with each other, and they basically can just scale up walls and get on maps, as you can see in this video demonstrating. See, sword canceling, and they're going up the wall. And this is called butterflying, what he just did there. And now look how high you got up. See? Unfair advantage. So all of these type of emergent gameplay improves the game by giving players who understand how to use them an advantage. In Halo 2, the leveling system, it goes up from 1 to 50, using symbols from 44 to 50, and it's a skill level. So if you think of as a level as 100%, when you say you start off at level 1, you start at 50%. And then if you win 2 games, now you're level 2. Each game that you win, you go up 25%, and each game you lose, you go down 25%. And so therefore, depending on what level you are, is how good you actually are, not just how much time you put into the game. Now, because of all these quirks, there is a new skill that a player must learn if they wish to get to certain levels in the game. And therefore, this is why Halo 2 is an example of emergent gameplay. So, for section 2, I decided to choose number 3, griefing. So the act of griefing affects both the developer and the community. Players become very frustrated as it influences the outcome of their game in a negative way. An example of this is when people feed. This is an action where a player will purposely let the other team kill them, and this is really bad if the game type you're playing has a limited amount of team lives, or if the team gains gold or some other form of advantage for killing them. Griefing affects the developers because the players get frustrated from the other players griefing them that they end up quitting the game. This can end up with bad reviews for the game, less people buying it, and loss of potential in-game purchases. This will really affect the company. This usually causes developers to take a census of what the players think about said action so they can please the mass. So here's a short little clip of this guy griefing in the League of Legends. You can see that it is 4-21, so they're obviously losing really bad. I can imagine this guy's probably been griefing all game long. You can watch him just run right into their team, obviously gonna die. And this is another person, like his teammate is perspective of this, because he's upset that he posted, so he posted this video of it. So, if you are the griefer, then you're playing the game so that you can take pleasure in other people not being able to enjoy the game. I have griefed before, usually after I get bored of playing a certain game and enjoy seeing players' reactions before getting off the game. Griefing is only fun for the griefer when they get reactions out of other players. Once the griefer stops getting reactions from the players, they realize they can get more enjoyment from another game or playing the game correctly, and they go and choose to do that instead. I personally am not a fan of griefing. I would never play a game for the purpose of just griefing, but if I became bored of playing that particular game correctly, I may partake part in it. Griefing is a form of emergent gameplay that affects almost all online games, and most people have tried it at some point, but I would rather play a game as the way the developers envisioned it over griefing itself. So now in section 3, I chose to explain how emergent gameplay is possible. So the example I chose was RuneScape. So there's many ways to show that emergent gameplay is possible. For instance, get a game that you already know how to play and get someone who has never played to play it. If that player starts to do something that isn't intended to be done and enjoys doing it, then that's an example of emergent gameplay. So it's because basically the developers didn't intend for that to be done, and this person is doing it anyways and getting enjoyment out of it, even though it's not even something that they're supposed to be doing. So professional game developers will often have this done with their games to see how players actually interact with their games. Therefore, they can make their tutorials more based on actually understanding like what the mass is trying to think when they're playing this game, not just what the developers think they're going to be thinking. So there are also games that are all about emergent gameplay. These games are typically MMORPGs, or massive multiplayer online role-playing games, where the developers create tons of actions and skills players can perform and level up. MMORPGs also have AI that players can interact with, whether that is by fighting them, befriending them, trading with them, or questing. This type of game style is a great example of emergent gameplay because the entire game is all about whatever you want to do. The game may have a storyline, but in no way is there any need to follow it. So here's an example of a guy playing RuneScape, and this is a video of how to get 55 to 60,000 experience an hour in smithing. So he's just running around and he's just showing other players how to do it. And there's tons of skills that there is in this game, and you can choose to do whatever you want whenever you want. There's a skill list right there that you can see, and he's doing smithing right now. So through a game of emergent gameplay, there is even more emergent gameplay. So for instance, an example is in RuneScape, you can perform dance actions at the end of some tasks called clue scrolls to gain rewards. But players use these actions to create online dance parties as well, as you can see in this video right here. They're all just dancing about, having fun. I'm like a little bit through the video, but earlier on there was less people and more people just started joining because they're just telling them to. So, and if you play an online game and you want to get ahead faster, but the game doesn't offer any way to buy online currency with real money like an app would do it on your mobile phone, you can usually buy stuff to progress yourself online. But in a lot of like MMORPGs, for instance, the game itself doesn't offer that option because players see that as unfair advantages and they usually won't play the game. So instead, other players take advantage of this and they'll go and they'll mass farm gold in those games so they can sell it to other players. And this is an example of emerging gameplay because the developers were intending for there to be real-life value to their virtual currency. So here's a web page for rsgoldpot.com where you can buy 1 million gold on the game for $1.59. And like this is just one of like dozens on dozens of websites that is dedicated to selling gold for RuneScape. There's probably other tons for other games out there too. And these are all examples of emergent gameplay. And